Hello and welcome back to this edition of Daily Actives brought to you by Bootleg Macro. I am Dustin. This is the show where we review the most active stocks in Yahoo Finance every single day. Now, I am looking at this as a weekend edition, so I'm going to essentially burn through a bunch of these stocks, probably doing about 2 minutes at max each. The first one I want to start with a plug. The thing that's interesting to me, if you watched my video yesterday, is essentially I did not think that this was possible. The only reason I didn't think so was just because we were very near the top of the range. Now, we were at 283 yesterday, and today we closed, it looks like at 381, which means we gained nearly $1 during the entire day, which is a ridiculous move. But if you're noticing anything in the market, not specifically related to plug, but just in general, there is breadth. Small caps are getting bid, momentum, small cap, beta, high short interest. It's all getting bid. When we start to look at what's happening in plug, this is just indicative of the rest of the market. But I like what I see. Obviously, I don't think that this is necessarily going to continue to run. It can't go vertical forever. Even the previous runs that we saw on the 22nd, it pulled back. The move on the first pullback. I don't know how far this thing can go, but I do love to see that this thing has got really high volume. If you watched my previous video, or at least the previous two about plug, I definitely talked about how the volume, when it comes to a big bullish move like this, is something I'm looking for. I can see that when it comes to the daily sentiment indicator, we are well above that 50% line. Looks like we're at 63% bullish sentiment, which I love to see. Even on the 15-day, we're at 64%. It's fascinating to me that we've gotten the volatility that continues to break out. Yesterday, I thought the volatility was probably going to start collapsing, but you can see that the correlation jumped with the actual volatility, which is an indication to me that the price is driving the correlations. Um, it's interesting because usually the second derivatives of certain like numbers will drive them, and you can kind of see the move either coming or in process, and it takes a while. Not with plug. Plug is one of those stocks that right now, very similar to what I say about Tesla, is blessed with volatility. Being blessed with volatility means you can go up, you can go down, you can go sideways, maybe for not very long until you have an explosion one way or another. These are stocks where you can make a ton of money. I mean, being up 34% a day, 60% over 5 days, just in a week, 150% in 15 days. These are great stocks, but they can rip your face off when they go the other way. So be careful. Let's go ahead and look at Open. I want to see what we got going on. Open continues to be one of the most popular stocks that people have been talking about. I know it's a very divisive stock just in the market currently. When I was reviewing it yesterday and what it continues to look like, if I'm looking at it up close, essentially you've got the price going nowhere right now. It's essentially floating around that $8 level. It looks like it's been at 881, 820, 797, 806, 801, and today 811. It obviously has a ton of volume relative to the rest of the market, not relative to itself, because you can see even over the past 3 months, the average volume has been 356 million shares traded. Today we saw 238. It's a very interesting move because essentially you see these candles, they've been incredibly flat in open. For it looks like it's coming to a point. What I would expect based on what I've looked for is I would say the sentiment is going to come down around the 50% line and then it's going to resettle. Right now we're at 54%. Even on the 15-day, we're at 50.2%. We're rising a little bit. What I'm expecting is that this volatility is going to continue to fall in open. I'm actually going to pull out a little bit so we can see this a little bit differently. Um, I think that the volatility and as it continues to fall, the correlation is going to go negative and probably get even more negative, probably going to turn red like this, where you've got really strong bearish correlation to the price movement in terms of volatility, and that's going to make the price go sideways to up. I just personally think that the way that Open is moving and the way that it's been trading and the type of chatter that it gets, it needs to clear the top of its trade level, which is at 838 right now. It needs to clear that at least to resume, but it's maintained its bullishness. It's got a higher low. Yes, it's negative on the 5 day and the 15-day, but it's very positive on the 3 month and the 1 month, and those are signals that I would consider to be enduring. Specifically the 3 month, but when it's so high, I would use the 1 month. When I'm thinking about it right now, I just use that as general trend. If the 1 month is positive, I would be a buyer of all dips on open. We'll find out how this thing trades. I think the next 10 days is going to tell us everything, to be honest. Let's go ahead and look at LAC. What is LAC? I have no idea. So I figured it out. LAC is Lithium Americas Corp. I am blown away. I'm just going to say that just at the very beginning of this review. I am blown away that a lithium corporation is one of the most active stocks in Yahoo Finance with 183 million shares traded, especially when you consider the average volume for this thing has been 26.9 million. I mean, this is a crazy move. I need to look at it much more closely just because the volatility has been so low here that the range got compressed, and now the moves that we're getting, these are unnatural. And when I mean unnatural, I mean that these are like event driven, these are catalyst driven for sure. These are not the type of moves that you just see because like their earnings are going up as would be in line with Wall Street expectations. This is like conditions have changed. People have to reimagine what they believe that this thing can be. The thing that I love about when that happens to a stock is anything can happen. Now, when we look at it on the 5 year, It's unfortunate to see that clearly we can see how high this can get before and then how quickly it can come down and essentially collapse and do nothing. So it is interesting to see that we're getting a resumption of that. If I look at the volume is absolutely incredible. I mean, again, you're showing here the volume, the average is 27.7 over the past 3 months. We saw 191 million, 205 million. We saw 288 million shares traded just recently. So like whatever has transitioned here in the Lithium Americas Corp has completely transformed the way this thing is being looked at. The sentiment is still around 51%, which I find to be incredible, but you would expect this type of move to really not register necessarily in bullish sentiment because it's gapping open. When you gap open, that is when the way that my models work, they're not doing well with gaps because that is price point that is really hard to model in the long term. And I'm really looking for something that's much more easy to model. I like that the volatility continues to break out. I am shocked that the correlation is still negative. The volatility is insane on the standard. If we look at the data table, I mean, the price is significantly high. The volume is moderately high. It's been coming from a great place. I love what I see here in terms of being bullish. The trade level is just too far away because it's literally 100% away from this right now. So I would expect a pullback of some sort. I mean, the 1 day move of 31% is crazy. The 15-day move of 200, this is just an insane move because especially when you look at the 1 year is 258%, the 6 month is 234, and all the way through to the 15-day or 200s plus, this move is so recent that like it needs time to digest and really understand what's happening. Let's go ahead and look at Snap. Snap is one of my favorites. The reason why I love Snap is because it's low priced, it's well known, and it's got vol. That's if there's really anything that you want to be trading, that's it. If we look here at what's been going on in Snap, essentially we can see it's a continuation of what was bullish with the green bars, bearish with the red bars, a little bit of volatility falling, and then a breakout. I love to see that it looks like the top of the range is starting to curl a little bit higher. The price looks like it's continuing to follow. That's a great resumption to me. I know that if you watched my video yesterday, I definitely called out the fact that that gap, there's going to be like what is considered to be overhead supply of just people who are going to be selling. So it's going to be tough. I would expect no matter what you do then, in terms of the bullishness, if there's going to be a changeover in the shares, you're going to see really high volume, which is really good, in my opinion. I think that seeing the price continue to kind of work out of these like little gullies or whatever you'd call them with above average volume over the past 6 months is really positive. Looking at the daily sentiment indicator, we're well above 50%. We're at 55%. I think even on the 15-day, we're at 60%. Things look really nice inside of Snap. I love that we've got the volatility starting to fall as well. I think the volatility falling, as I continue to say, is when the trend reveals itself. So the one thing that we're seeing is we're seeing a little resumption of higher volatility. Maybe that's because we need to actually reverse the trend because we're getting a little bit of a bearish trend there. So you would expect a breakout as a trend reverses. But as the trend starts to establish itself, you really start to see low volatility. And then I would expect that correlation to fall, and that should be fantastic. If we look at the data, Snap is essentially now moderately high. The previous 3 days were the days to buy it when it was in the normal range. I do like that we're seeing good volume. We're well above the top of the trade level. I think it's really interesting that essentially for 2 days you got an opportunity to buy either around or within like 1% or 10% of essentially the trade level, 1%. But it is fascinating to me that if you look at what we're seeing here, Snap continues to show bullishness and trendlessness. It somehow maintains being like something you can buy on the dips, but it doesn't really make any headway. You know what I mean? Like the way that if you look at Snap over the past year, it's essentially gone sideways, even though you get these bullish moves that make you feel like you're a genius for like 3 or 4 days. But it is a great tradable stock. Let's go ahead and look at RTGI, Rigetti Computing, just another one of these. Just a word of the wise, when the market starts to get slightly frothy, you get the names that are just obnoxious, and they're fun. They're super fun. Don't get me wrong, but you get these obnoxious names that feel like they're directly out of like comic books, like Rigetti. Maybe that's a last name. I'm not sure, but like it just come on. Like what are we doing? I mean, at least there's other ones that are like Tesla's at least a word. Snap is a word. Plug power, like plug it in. You know what I mean? Like Dennis in Mines. I know that's just the guy's name. Like, RIGD. Okay, I'll get back to the thing. But if we're essentially looking at what's going on here, this is an incredibly positive sign. One of the most bullish things that I've seen the entire time. I can't believe what's been happening in this stock because it continues to reach the top of its highs, fall back in the middle of its range, and then break out higher as the range does. Usually you don't see such a sustained move, especially considering the fact that you've got such high volume. We've had over the past 2 days, it looks like nearly over 300 million shares traded just in 2 days. And something that is, but look at the market cap, yeah, it checks out $12 billion as of today, and it was up 13% to get there. So these are just incredible moves. We are very, very bullish. It's 67% on the daily. I would expect that to come back down. On the 15-day, it looks like we're at 68%. I would expect that to come back down. The volatility is at the highest that we've seen in the past 9 months. I'd expect that to come back down. I mean, the only thing that may not come back was the price. Like it may base a little bit, but you're at $40. The trade level's at 28.88 or 25.88. We do have a higher high, as you'd expect. The top of the range is at $43. I mean, when you're looking at this, it's just an absurd move. When you're up 5,000% in 1 year, 300% in 6 months, you have to, these are like laughable. Not because they're not real, not because they're not legitimate, but because you so rarely see these moves in a traditional bull market. The people who trade these kinds of moves, if they are really, really good at capturing them, they have no idea what it looks like to see a 1% per day bull market like 2023, where it was up 30% for the year, but like you didn't have to do anything. There was like if there was a down day, it was like 30 basis points. So these kinds of moves are insane. I buy RIGD, that's what I might do. I gotta wait for the zone. Let's go ahead and look at Tesla. Tesla's continues to be one of the most fascinating stocks that exists in the world, not even just the US, because of the mercurial and incredibly like genius founder and CEO. But when I look at the stock, the volatility gods have blessed this thing to heaven and back. When we are looking, seriously, the move that we've seen from where it was at 340, 340, all the way up to 460 just like a couple of days ago. And now it looks like we may be seeing, I'm not saying it's a top, but I will say if we look, we want to check the bullish sentiment is so high in Tesla. It's at 66%. This thing is a $1 trillion+ company. The 15-day, you can already tell is starting to roll over. You can see it's at 60%. So the daily has got to catch up to where the 15-day is. This thing usually tops out around 70. Usually that is in like a penny stock or some really high beta thing. Tesla shouldn't trade like this. So I can't confirm that this is going to necessarily continue, but if I'm looking at my indicators the way that I know them, the volatility is broken out, the bullish sentiment is really high, the move has gotten really extended. And then I look at the data table and I just go, God, I would want to buy you here. The reason I say that is because it's bullish, it's well above its trade level, it's coming back down to it, it's got a higher low, and you are in the normal range. Like everything that I just said about Tesla completely before, I mean it's all true, and I still want to buy it. Like that's what sucks because Tesla has the moves where because the market that we're in is incredibly frothy, and I could have just bought it today for 429. Do you realize that price hasn't been available since the last time it was green in the 20s, since it was green on the 25th? Before that, like you had to buy it at 347 when it was green last time, and that was before it went on this crazy move where it's now up 38% in 3 months and 22% in 1 month. So I'm looking at Tesla now and I'm saying, I actually want to buy that. I want to buy calls on Tesla. I should have bought calls on Tesla today, but I didn't. Oh God. You can't win them all. I've got all incredibly profitable positions, but you can't win them all. You just wish you could, but you literally just don't have enough capital. Let's look at Nvidia here. NVIDIA is a very interesting one because this continues. This is more important to the actual tone of the market than even Tesla, even though Tesla itself has led the market at certain times. NVIDIA here is showing us this is if you have the idea that stocks have like personalities, this is like when the king returns from battle. Like NVIDIA is essentially the king of the market and has been running it for better part of 2 years now since ChatGPT came out. And this thing has been nothing short of amazing. Now, unfortunately, my data provider is trash when it comes to reverse splits or splits. Yeah, reverse splits. So that doesn't look great. But this thing has essentially been on a tear and we all know it. Now, what I like about what I'm seeing in NVIDIA is that it has gone from very, very bullish. You can see this bullishness in May all the way through the very beginning of August or middle of August. It's been bearish. Well, we've had bad news, Chinese not buying chips, trade wars, blah, 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 whatever's going on. And this thing is fighting back. We've essentially seen and when I talk about low volatility bull markets, the one you see in NVIDIA, this is what you should dream of. If you trade Rigetti Computing and you don't understand how nice it is to trade something that has the volatility like NVIDIA when it's in its bull market, you just like fun. You like your heart pumping for no reason. I would rather trade NVIDIA and buy calls on NVIDIA and just hang out than I would try to catch the tops and the bottoms in Rigetti Computing, even though that thing is going to make fortunes. Back to NVIDIA. NVIDIA continues to show what it's like again when a king comes back from battle, because it is about to resume, at least what it appears to me, resume bullishness. Now, it hasn't resumed yet, right? That green line there means it's bullish. This red line means it's bearish. Very similar to these green bars mean it's bullish, and these red lines mean it's bearish. I haven't seen it yet, but when I'm looking at the daily sentiment indicator, we have been under 50 since the middle of August. We are just breaking up above the 50% line at 52.3%. Yes, we're down a little bit on the 15-day, but I don't care. We've got a resetting of volatility right as we're about to hit a level. Volatility is starting to break out. The correlation's down, which is not great, but it can always come positive. It can always roll and come positive. So if we are looking at the data table, what I still don't see, even though I believe that it's going to happen because we are still into the moderate high here, even when we were down. So looking at the data table for NVIDIA, this is with the red background means it's moderately high. We were down today and it's still moderately high. That's how strong that the move is that we're currently seeing in NVIDIA. It is well above its trade level, but it's bearish. See, that's the thing. It's still bearish. And I think that the move that you saw today, I love the fact that it was on low volume. I love the fact that the price barely moved yesterday and the day before, and that was on like either middle volume, normal volume, or moderately low volume. I want only big volume to return, like high volume, when we are breaking out, we're going significantly high. I think that's possible. I truly think it's possible, but Nvidia has definitely got to close in like the mid 190s, and I need to see 200 before the end of the year because we are not seeing the type of movement that we should. But again, I think it is about to resume being king of the mountain. Let's go ahead and look at. I'm gonna look at INTC. Sorry, Denison Mine. I just can't do it. I just can't do mines. There's just something about it. I want a high dividend. And the idea that you're just on this you're on this list just because I can't do it. Yeah, your beta is 1.84. Ridiculous vol. Ridiculous vol. Yeah. Oh, nice bull market though. I have to admit, very nice bull market. Like since April, very nice bull market. I might look at you. Looking at Intel though, INTC, this move has been wonderful. If you haven't watched my videos before, invest with the government, invest with the government, invest with the government. If you've got people pushing your book, let them push your book. I'm not saying it's legal. I'm not saying I agree with it. It is what it is. If the government wants to buy into a company, you can too, apparently. So, but when we're looking at what's going on in NVIDIA, this move has been nothing short of like a trend changer. Like NVIDIA, or not NVIDIA, Intel was not on anything positive. It's essentially been sideways since the middle of August of 2024. Suddenly, the US government takes a position. This thing is moving like it is a momentum stock and it's got growing sales. Does it? I don't know. Is it? I don't know. All I can tell you is the price is reflecting. There's a bull market that's up and to the right. So when we look here at the individual like candles, I mean, what are you going to fight? You've got a bull market, you've got breakouts, you've got gap ups, you've got higher moves, you've got higher volume. We're looking at the bullish sentiment well above the 50% line at 54%. Even on the 15-day, we're up at 60%. The volatility is breaking out, and the price is gapping up. I mean, when we look at the data table, this thing is either moderately high, significantly high, or extremely high. It hasn't been in the normal range since the announcement where the US government took a position. I don't know what else you need to know other than the US government wants people to buy this and wants to use their products. It's bullish, it's above the trade level, it's got higher highs, and from a 3 month all the way through a 1 year, it's up over 50%. I mean, what else do you need? I'm going to buy some Intel on a pullback. I don't know why I haven't. I blame myself. I really need to make some better choices, but it's so easy to literally just buy low volatility Q calls as opposed to that. But Intel is probably going to become incredibly low volatility too. I'm kicking myself for not buying it. Now we're going to look at qubits. I do want to look at qubits because quantum computing is very hot. It is very popular. It's coming. When we look at the actual moves here, I will say that I'm not a chartist, is the term, I think, CMT or whatever, the people who look at charts and scan patterns, but this is a beautiful looking move. I just, even though it just makes me think of a rhino, you know what I mean? Like here, look at the back, the top, the hook, horn. But the move that we see is just remarkable, especially because you can see the bullishness, you can see a resumption of bearishness, see a resumption of bullishness, and now we are resuming again on high volume, baby. You want the volume, the high. I do think that this chart, the volume graph, is probably one of the most valuable things on this entire page, because being able to see it, especially having the average, and then being able to like actually properly just go, wow, that's a shit ton of volume. 117 million shares traded in 1 day. That is a lot of volume to be in a company that is 4.5 billion. That is insane. It is nearly at 60%. Oh no, it's at 60.6% bullishness on the daily. It looks like it's rolling over a little bit on the 15-day. It's at 61%. We've got the volatility. Looks like hopefully it's peaking, starts to roll over. That'd be fantastic. What we should have done, or what I should have done, would have the past 5 days could have easily bought it. Obviously, being up 23% in a day, you don't expect, but what a move. I love that it was 24. It was up. I mean, it's significantly high on significantly high volume. You got a higher high in the top of the range. This seems positive. I mean, these are joke numbers. Like when it's up 35%, 3,500% a year, that's a joke number. I know that I know that that's real, but come on. Those kinds of situations are congratulations if you're still holding. I do actually, if you're probably an owner, you probably actually do hold and probably do own, and that is awesome. I'm going to cover two more stocks. I'm going to cover Palantir. Let's cover Palantir real quick. So Palantir is an interesting one. Palantir is a very interesting one. The reason why is that it doesn't seem as though it has been doing enough trending. Now, the volatility of Palantir has been very low while it's been in this bull market. It looks like from April until this blow off in the middle of August. And then essentially what we saw was a downward move, bearishness, sideways move with some bearishness. And then as we started to get up to what looks like the same level, we saw a massive down day today. That is really interesting because, as again, not being a chartist, I just consider that to be it seems like a trend change, in my opinion. And you can see that even today, we resumed bearishness. So we only had 3 days of bullishness, it looks like. So we got bearishness returning, and the bullishness returned on low volume, and the bearishness is returning on high volume. When we look at the daily sentiment indicator, we're well below the 50% line. At least looks like we're just at the 50. I'm not sure that it's going to resume. We were definitely above it before here when we were in that bull market, especially the low volatility. The 15-day has only got 44% bullish behavior. That's interesting to me. Volatility is breaking out. Volatility in real life is breaking out. I find this to be fascinating because Palantir has been such a darling, especially considering it's still up 21% on the 3 months. What was the high? The high was like, yeah, it was up like 50% in 3 months and 80% in 3 months. Like these are the type of moves that you'd expect to continue to see in something with the name recognition of Palantir, 70% in 3 months. And these are still in 2025. This is during that bull market that we were just reviewing. So it's interesting to see it get down all the way to 21%. You really want to protect the 1 day or the 1 month move here. It's interesting that it's bearish. It's interesting that it's below its trade level. It is interesting that it is potentially going to flip on the 15-day if it's down another little bit. And then even the 1 month is not really safe here. I'm really curious about what happens for Palantir through October. October's gonna be a really interesting time for the stock because you can definitely tell that something has transitioned in the way that it's being treated in the market. It's been bearish, but like this bullish run, like you can just see, look at the bullish sentiment. Like it was so solid from the very beginning of April or the middle of April. It looks like here at $100. This thing ran from $100 and was bullish all the way. Let's look at it. I wouldn't just to call out, I wouldn't consider one single bearish to be a trend change. I would need to see two in a row. So here is where I consider it. So I would say to here on the 20th of August, but from there you're up 50%, right? Like that's a 50% move. Over 6 months, you're up 80%. Like that move is incredible. It's just really interesting that that beginning of bearishness held for a while here. And even in the face of it, it's kind of remarkable that even in the face of the bearishness, the price rose, right? Like I would consider there's certain indicators that I pay attention to. So like if it's bearish, but it's above its trade level, I'm like, okay, that's interesting. It's starting to show some bullishness, especially if it still either has a 3 month positive or it's about to flip its 1 month positive rolling return. But regardless, it was bearish and it continued to rise. And yeah, it's really interesting because that move, you would not expect that. But again, this fall over, essentially this collapse here, is what caused the problem. Because the volatility got so high, it was expecting the top of the range to be way higher, and it just would never got there because you essentially just collapsed at the end of it looks like August for a little bit. But that's interesting about Palantir. I will want to see what happens to that for the rest of the month of October. Let's go ahead. The last one we're going to look at is SoFi. I'm curious about SoFi because I definitely had a large position in SoFi, I think, at the beginning of this week, and I definitely sold all those calls. And I've been riding SoFi for a while. I've definitely found it to be a very fun and very easy to trade. Again, if you watch the portion of the video about low volatility momentum, this is a low volatility bull market, which is what you want. But you can definitely see a transition has happened. I definitely had calls that were around like 25, and I bought them in like the 20s and the 18s. But once we started to see this move come down, I was like, I got to get out because this transition to I definitely sold it on the 30th. As soon as we saw the bearish, as soon as I saw the bearish move is when I sold all my stuff in SoFi. when you look at this, the move that we're seeing, yes, we could come out of the bottom of the range, which would be 23.87, but that would be a painful move from where it was when it was essentially at 30. That would be a very painful move. You're going to be down like 30% from there. Like, let's look at where it is. Yeah, you're not necessarily down, but right now you're even over 5 days, you're down 10%. Like that's a painful move, especially if you're in calls. And you can see the bear signal because you've got the 1 month is the negative rolling return. I'm very curious about what happens inside of SoFi as well. Because the first day I saw it bearish, I sold the next day. I sold on the first because I respect my fucking signals. And sorry for swearing. I think that this is a ridiculous trend change that is happening in SoFi. I don't know where it's coming from. I don't know what's happening. But what it reminds me of, just to let you know, it reminds me of Chewy. Chewy had a very interesting move itself because it essentially went from pretty bullish this year. And when I say pretty bullish, it's hard to describe because this isn't a the one thing that's tough about this app is that it isn't my logarithmic or like my scale here is not great in terms of really expressing like these moves. But you can see, well, actually, I guess down here on the chart. So, but you can see that Chewy went from a very it's a bearish move. It's a bullish phase. Like it transitioned into bullishness in the middle of April. It rode it aggressive into the very beginning of June. So that was a proper, what I love is a proper like 6 week trade. That was a proper 6 week trade inside of the market. You essentially had half of a quarter for it to be able to set up, it to move, and then you had earnings, and then it completely transitioned it to a bear market. You saw a little bit of resumption of bullishness try to fight back, but it can't come back. Once you lose that kind of a move, and especially when you get a gap down, the type of moves that you'd expect are going to be very anemic, and that's what you're getting here. You're getting a reversal into a little bit of bullishness, collapse, a little bit of bullishness, and you can see it's on its way back down now. That's what I'm thinking is going to happen in SoFi. The concern that I have for SoFi is that it has a narrative, but there's just too many factors that are going to make it so that the business won't be able to grow at the rate that is going to make it so that people are going to get excited. You need to see big growth. I don't pay attention to fundamentals like at all, but I understand that people do, and that's an easy narrative to pay attention to. It's so much easier to sell people on yesterday's sales than it is on tomorrow's forecast if you actually never sell anything. Like, well, and SoFi by itself, I'm assuming is a great business. I have no doubt in my mind, but they don't because they sell money and they sell debt. That is a hard thing for people to just like get behind unless it's like that short term shit. It's got to be like a firm. It's got to be like a Sezzle. It's got to be one of these like payday loan ones. There's nothing sexy or fun about SoFi. They help you refinance your home and like redo your student loans. That's I mean, the beta is high, but it's nothing that like what's a firm? Like a firm and SoFi are technically similar, and that completely changes the way that the market views it. Like their beta is 3.58 and they do like layaway. SoFi is like long-term layaway, but like for your house and a boat and all that kind of stuff. I think Chewy is a great example of what might happen to SoFi. But tell me what you think in the comments below. If you're interested, you can always follow me. Go ahead and watch any more of my videos. I've got a bunch of them. I don't get great views if I don't post them at night, but I do get some views. I'm getting like 100 nearly almost. You should definitely join the party. If you want, you can follow me on Twitter. Not a lot of follows. Get it while it's hot. And then if you're interested, I do have a crypto newsletter. I do think it's great. I think the crypto newsletter might actually be the most useful thing that I have out of everything because what you can do is you can actually get it sent to you first off every single day. It gives you an entire list of exactly what it looks like for all the crypto stocks. You can try it, free trial, all that kind of stuff. I'll talk to you soon.